You're listening to the Startup Soirée podcast, episode number 6. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another stunning episode of the Startup Soirée podcast. Patrick Reif here, your hostess with the mostest. I got to edit that out. I won't. I'll leave it there for the benefit of all of you to laugh at me. Today's Soirée podcast guest is Matt Mindell from Fed Thrill Sunglasses. Fed Thrill are a kind of a boutique sunglass company based here in Baltimore. They are chomping at the bit for their 2-year anniversary. I believe that's coming up shortly here in the beginning of March. So without too much more deliberation, Matt, welcome to the Startup Soirée podcast.
Thank you very much, Patrick. It's happy to be here.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Matt was also one of the founders that was in attendance at our first Startup Soirée event here in Baltimore at the end of January. So excited to be starting to fill our podcast seat up with people that are coming out and participating in the live, in the flesh soiree events. So Matt, we don't beat around the bush too much, so if you don't mind, I'm going to get right into it. Give the Soirée podcast crew a little bit of background about yourself and how Fed Thrill came to be so thrilling.
Thank you. So as he introduced, my name is Matt Mindell. I actually went to University of Maryland where I studied psychology, and then I went on to get a master's degree at Loyola and started off as a school counselor, actually, at a high school where I would work with kids, and I also coached a lot. So I played lacrosse throughout high school and college, and even continued a little bit afterwards, and I was coaching and, kind of enjoying things, but always had that itch, I guess you could call it, that desire to kind of build something for myself, do my own thing, and kind of always had that desire. And I came to be living in Federal Hill. I had a house, and one of my friends was living with me, and we were sitting around just kind of talking about different things. And for whatever reason, one subject that would come up quite often was sunglasses. I would buy a pair of Oakleys, and I would have them for a while. They'd cost me $140, and I'd either lose them or I'd break them, and I'd be pissed. And we'd say, "Oh man, where can I get a better pair of these? I'm just going to go to the gas station and get a $5 pair." And it just seemed like there was this ongoing issue between me and some of my roommates that we were always complaining about our sunglass issue. And that's when me and my co-founder, Tyler Puckett, he was my roommate at the time. He now lives down in Bethesda, but he still comes up quite often to attend Baltimore events. But the two of us just said, "Hey man, if we want to do something, we're gonna have to do it ourselves. If we're gonna kind of solve this problem that we saw, where we had two dichotomies: either you're spending hundreds of dollars and having these pair of glasses that you have to kind of keep an eye on 24/7 because you're so worried about losing them, and then or the other side of things where it's only a cheap pair of sunglasses from the gas station that doesn't do one." So we started to look into making our own designs, and did some research on both starting companies and how to get things manufactured. And then we kind of the idea of Fed Thrill was born. So about 2 years ago, like I said, March 1st of 2 years ago is when we first launched and first opened up our website for the first sales. And since then, we've just been constantly growing, and people around Baltimore have really jumped on board and kind of love our shades. We have lots of different colors and styles, and it's been really a really awesome ride since then. So yeah, and then as being an entrepreneur, every day is a learning experience. Every week or two, I'm learning new things that I never knew before, and I'm really excited to kind of keep learning and keep growing. And basically, as an entrepreneur, I see it more as a job of problem solving than anything, which I think is an interesting way to put it. But I feel like I'm constantly solving problems, and the problem always originally starts is, where are my first clients going to come from? And then the next problem is, how do I get my clients who are on the website to actually buy the product? And then how do I get my clients to then, you know, get more interactive with the company and to really enjoy the product and enjoy all the things that have to go along. So, you know, for me, that's the best part is just, you know, using my brain, using my resources, talking to different people and, you know, doing everything I can to kind of improve things as going forward. And we're real excited for this spring. We're going to be adding some different types of sunglasses. Right now we do the Wayfarer style, but we're going to be adding some aviators, and then maybe in the future sometimes some Club Master type and some other types of Wayfarers, and you know, trying to get in some more stores and just keep growing with the company. And yeah, so that's kind of an overview of you know, what we've been doing so far.
Sure. Good. Really good introduction. Gives us a very well-rounded read on kind of what your experience has been. So I have a huge stack of questions that I could refer to, but quite frankly, your intro started to stir it up, and that's for me the best way to go through. So if you don't mind, I'm going to just kind of get a little more specific with you. When you from your aha moment of saying let's figure out how to provide a better alternative for cool sunglasses that you know that don't suck and that aren't $250. From that point, that aha moment till you guys had a product ready to kind of just sell it, if you could find someone to sell it to, what was the length of time there?
Well, you know, we use the March 1st as our kind of 1 year anniversary, but to tell you the truth, it started about a year before that. So about a year of planning went into it. And, you know, like anything, the one thing I was amazed at when we first started, you always think like, oh my God, this is such a daunting task, kind of just getting a business together. There's financials and there's taxes and there's, you know, naming the company and pricing things and just there's so many different factors. But as you learn very quickly by doing, you know, even just a little bit of research is there's people in the world who've done it before, and you don't really have to go out on this road alone. As long as you're willing to spend some time and do some research and really open your ears and open your eyes. And I think that's, you know, one thing I learned pretty quickly was like, wow, there are people, especially on the internet this day, you know, day and age, there's a ton of people who've been there, done that, and have opinions. And it doesn't always mean every opinion's perfect and every opinion's great, but it does mean that you can learn a lot from books and from blogs and from different sources that can really get you into how to do it. And then from there, we started, you know, contacting different manufacturers, different factories, getting some sample materials, kind of mocking up what we want it to look like, looking at other pairs of sunglasses that we liked and didn't like, and what we liked about them, and what we didn't like about them. And then in addition to that, one thing we did, which I think was really helpful, is we sent out some surveys. So any new company, before you even make your first product, you may want to start to get a feel for what your potential consumers want. And with a lot of, you know, first-time businesses, your potential customers are often going to be your friends, your family, people who live close to you, because that's just naturally who is going to be your kind of your first line of people you're going to be contacting. So we started sending out emails and interview or not interviews, what do you call them, surveys, so that people we could ask, you know, whether they liked which kind of color, whether they liked matte kind of glasses or glossy, whether polarized was important to them, whether they wanted, you know, they'd rather have free shipping or they'd rather have a longer warranty. And you can really get a ton of information. Now it's pretty important that you keep it simple. Otherwise people aren't going to get back to you. But, and what I found is if you ask people personally, you'll get a pretty good rate of return. Now, if you send out a blanket survey to a bunch of people without any kind of personal touch, a lot of times they'll see another you know, survey in their email and delete it. But if you really reach out to people personally, you can start to get a good feel. And it's important to have a variety of people, both girls and guys, people of different, who live in different places, some from Baltimore, some from out of Baltimore, just so you can get a good, fair assumption. And we were able to use that information to kind of get started. And even since then, we have actually changed our frame model, you know, from year 1 to year 2, because, you know, some things we wanted to upgrade and some things we noticed, and you're constantly learning and opening your ears. So yeah, there was about, you know, I'd say a year of planning, of putting things in place before fully being ready to kind of open that website and get your first clients. Because we wanted to be ready. We didn't want to open something up where we were just still fumbling around figuring out what our process would be and what our routines would be. So, it's something important to keep in mind, that there is a good amount of planning. And you want to do that right the first time, because if you come out with a really shoddy product or a shoddy system of business, it's going to be tough to keep going.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. I'm wondering if you would. I think you're our first manufacturer, if you will, that we've had on the podcast, and as such, you're occupying a unique space at the moment, because you're speaking into kind of some of the challenges that are inside of that space. But also, I find my own curiosity piqued because 2015 is the year that Pixelated moves into manufacturing and we move into supply chain. And even though that stuff is kind of we have a quantity of product we sell all these years, and it's just been event photo booth services, and there's something to do with supply chain that goes into that as well. But when it comes down to the fundamentals of actually manufacturing goods, it's a whole different conversation. So I was wondering if you would be willing to share with our audience a real challenge that you experienced in the 2 years doing this, and maybe what the challenge was and how you overcome it. What was your aha that helped you kind of leap past whatever that challenge was, and find a good solution for it and make it work for you?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some challenges to having manufacturing done. Now, there's no secret we don't do our own manufacturing. Personally, we actually do put together the sunglasses ourselves, but the actual manufacture of products does happen overseas, and that in itself has plenty of difficulties. And since we do it overseas, we are able to save a fair amount of money. But then there becomes a lot of other factors, such as things we never even thought about ahead of time, like customs, doing going through U.S. customs and having to pay. And one time the U.S. government decided to inspect all our boxes, and they didn't tell us how long it was going to take, and we literally had our boxes stuck in a terminal somewhere for about 2 or 3 weeks. Meanwhile, we had made some headway with some different people who wanted to order the new colors that we were coming in, and we kept telling them, oh, it's coming, and that got a little frustrating. So you got to always set aside a lot of more time than you would think. So whatever you think, however long they tell you it's going to take to process, always put in extra time. Don't ever promise someone something that you can't deliver on. If you have something that's coming, you got to always have extra time. There's always problems. There's always mistakes. And we even had a few issues with the language barrier, where we were actually telling someone that we wanted something done in white, and when we got it, it was clear, it was see-through. And when I sent back to the person I was working with, I said, hey, look, this was supposed to be white, not clear. And they said, oh, you meant very white. So apparently, in whatever they translated it as, they thought that when I said white, I wanted clear, and white was, or solid white. That was what they said, not very white. They said solid white. So apparently, there was a difference there. So there's always little bumps and things to the road. So we just make sure anything we're getting manufactured, because we're always doing it in bulk. I mean, we're not just doing a few at a time. We're doing a lot. So we always ask for pictures of them ahead of time, just so we can verify that they're exactly what we want. And we send them samples. We had some color samples we're doing for SDX actually coming up. They wanted a certain color. So we actually took a ball stopper that SDX had, a certain color, and mailed it over to our manufacturing factory so they could make sure they matched it exactly. So, it's been an interesting thing getting things manufactured. I think the important thing is that you are very clear with what you want. You can't be vague. You can't just say, oh, just make it look good. You got to really kind of describe exactly what color is. We spend a lot of time looking at Pantone colors, where they have, a chart of thousands of different colors, and then they all have codes with them. So you got to make sure you have the right code. And once you do that, you're gonna have some success. You just got to be careful and not overlook it too quickly and just think, oh, it'll take care of itself. You really got to put some of your own thought into it and making sure you're clear.
How many purchase orders are you doing on a yearly basis? So I know you said you guys are buying in bulk, and I know that you're not necessarily at Oakley status yet, but you're tapping at the door. I'm just curious about how consuming time wise it is. For how much time you spend kind of orchestrating the shipping and the orders from overseas.
Yeah, I mean it's almost like an ongoing thing for us. We do about two big, I would say, when I say big, I mean, multiple thousands of pairs per year. We do like one big fall order and then one big kind of right before the spring. Spring is kind of our biggest time in summer, so we really want to be ready with a good amount of product. And our big thing is we never want to run out, so we're always thinking ahead. So as soon as we're down to 100 pair or something, we'll be already getting that next order ready to go. And then in between, we've had to do a couple orders that were more custom. So like I said, we've joined forces with a couple different companies over the years. We did an Oyster pair of sunglasses through a company called True Chesapeake. So we actually had a custom Oyster pick made. And then we're doing one with STX coming up. And we did one with Roanoke College where we actually had a couple thousand made down there. So in between kind of our two big orders, we're constantly kind of putting in what I call smaller orders. There's still, at least, several hundred to several thousand, is considered a small order on our side. But those are kind of things we're working on. So it's pretty much nonstop. I mean, once we're done one order or once we get it in the mail, we're almost already looking ahead at what the next order is going to be, whether we're adding a new color or whether we're adding a new frame or we're doing polarized or those kind of things that we have to think about. So it's a constant. I mean, it's not an everyday thing, as in we're always constantly looking at it. But once one order comes in, we look at it. We kind of look at our numbers, what's selling, what's not selling. That's a really important thing too, is that you're keeping track of what are your products are selling. What do you need? What are you going to need more of ahead of time, and what maybe colors or sizes or things you can kind of slow down on. And the longer you're in it, the more you'll get a feel for that. Because at the beginning, there really is a little bit of guesswork in there. Yeah, you can use some statistics and some surveys, but there's always going to be some guesswork at the beginning. But once you get into it, you can really kind of figure out, okay, this is about how many of these we're selling. And what we found is we have a hard time keeping up sometimes because our company has been growing almost faster than we anticipated, and we're just constantly having to reevaluate how big those orders are.
So I have some questions here that speak a little bit more to you as a founder and kind of just your personal philosophy. Do you have or do you value any kind of personal daily traits that you do that are important to your success, whether it's as an entrepreneur or just as a healthy, balanced human being?
Yeah, I mean that's a very interesting question because I think it's something that everyone easy when it's your company. There's no one really looking over your shoulder and saying you have to do this then and this day and this day like most jobs. It really is what you feel needs to be done, and you have to prioritize. But at the same time, you can't let certain things go. I know me and my partner have certain parts of the business that aren't the most exciting, that neither of us are really excited about, and that's going to be true no matter what. Whether it's doing the taxes or whether it's following up with customer service calls or something like that. There may be some areas that you're good at and some areas that you're not so good at. And it's important that you set aside time for each, that you really have a calendar, you have a schedule each day, and you're saying, okay, I got to spend an hour doing this and a half hour, working on the website, another hour making phone calls for possible, connections or stores. And because if you don't do that, what happens is you start to really just only focus on the thing that you enjoy doing. And for me, my enjoying is always the strategic planning. I'm always looking big steps, and you can ask my partner, but I'm thinking 10 steps ahead when really we got to, maybe get through this week and get some things put together and done, and some little minutia things. So you really got to set aside time for each. So set aside time for the big planning, set aside time for the minutia, and as much as you can, try to seek help for the little things, get people that can help you, whether it's employees or interns or, even just outsourcing different things so that you can spend your time doing what you're good at and what you're passionate about, but not really forgetting. So I think, time management is important. try to find time to do things like work out or spend time with your family. And that's always as important to me as well. And really just kind of enjoying the process of it all. And then what I've noticed with Fed Thrill or with anyone with a company, there really is no end goal. There's no end. If I get to this, I'm happy and that's over. It's a constant growth. It's a constant learning. It's a constant enjoying myself. So if you're not enjoying doing the little things, you're not enjoying the day to day, then maybe, being an entrepreneur is not for you. But if you're really enjoying the process and going through it, then you're going to be very successful and, keep working to make things better. So, it's important to ask questions, important to humble yourself. It's important to know that you don't have all the answers. That's kind of a idea that I've really thought about a lot is, there are always people around you who are going to be telling you what they like, what they don't like, potential customers, and you may not agree with them. And it doesn't mean that it's not a good opinion. It's not good to listen. So it's important that you're taking that in and really using that as part of your company policy, or that you're open to things and you're open to trying new things and taking some risks, because if you don't do that, then you're really going to you're going to get stuck. You got to kind of broaden your horizons, be open to new things, open to new experiences, and really go with it when you have that chance. So I know I got a little off topic at the end there, but
no, you didn't, and you set up you set up the next question really well. So you said recognizing how to systemize things and create opportunities for you to work on things that you're good at. So that said, what qualities do you excel at? What are the really special things that you bring to the table?
Personally, like I mentioned before, the kind of the big picture. I've got these grandiose ideas, which is important to have in any company. You don't want to stop yourself from having those plans and those ideas just because they may be too much. Like, hey, have those huge ideas that may take a little bit to get to, and have an end goal, because you'd be surprised how quickly you could get there if you have those ideas. And you'd be surprised what other thoughts come from that. You may have this idea that you're going to have this huge new initiative with many moving parts, and might not happen right away, but maybe you have a few of those parts in place, or maybe you find the best parts of it, and then you grow and slowly get better and better. So I think my personal attribute is kind of looking at that game plan, that big picture. The other thing that I really pride myself on is, being an ex-psychology major myself, I'm really interested in kind of what makes people tick, what kind of makes them work. Why do they do what they do? And there's a good amount of research out there, some good, some bad, but that kind of tells you how people work. When someone goes to your website, what are they thinking? What kind of feelings are they feeling? What kind of emotional response are they having? Because as most entrepreneurs know, there really is an emotional response to purchasing items, to buying things. And you want to make sure that's a positive one, that's a good one, that you're kind of following that. And I've always kind of prided myself in looking at the psychology of people and why they do what they do and what makes them tick and what's going to make an employee work harder versus not work as hard. A lot of people think, oh, if you pay them more money, they'll work harder, when there's really very little research to support saying that the more money you get, the harder you work. There's a ton of other factors, whether it's appreciation or feeling like they're challenged or feeling like they're a part of the company, that will they'll make people work hard. So it's not that I'm trying to make people work hard, but I'm trying to incentivize them. They have a good time and a good experience. And you want anyone who's a part of your company to have a good experience and to come out of it with good feelings, because then they'll be more like a champion of your cause and to work hard and bring new ideas and really spread the wealth. So I would say, like I said, the big picture stuff I really pride myself on the psychology. And I think I talked a little bit at the beginning about the problem solving. That's the one thing I've really, it was interesting going into this whole entrepreneur thing. You kind of think, oh, if you're good at business, you're good at business, but there's so many different aspects of it that are, maybe the problem solving is not the best word, but just things that are happening and you got to figure out an answer. You got to use some critical thinking skills. You got to do some research, combine that, and kind of find the best course of action, and to be honest with yourself and say, okay, maybe that wasn't the best course of action. Maybe we should have been different. You got to be humble at times to know that, hey, maybe I don't have all the answers, and other people do, and to be able to try things and try new things and say, okay, this worked, this didn't work. We're going to continue with what worked and discontinue what didn't work, but not to beat yourself up about it if it didn't.
Matt, on behalf of the Startup Soirée community, I wanted to just thank you for being a guest and sharing a little bit of your experience. And we'll look forward to seeing you at the February Startup Soirée.
I look forward to the next Startup Soirée, and thank you to Pat for setting up this podcast, and to Nick also, who is working on the Startup Soirée with you guys. So yeah, I look forward to the next one. You guys do a good event.
Awesome. All right, Matt. Well, thanks so much. Have a good rest of your day.